Hi, it's Sarah, and I just wanted to share an urban sketching experience. I had planned to go to visit friends and family in Cleveland, but the airlines decided we would stay in Bellingham, so I took some time to sketch that afternoon to collect my thoughts and do something I liked. So I have my sketchbook and I started sketching this beautiful pavilion, a Korean war veterans memorial. It's a memorial to those veterans who helped Korean children reunite with families during and after the war. So sometimes I come to this place called Big Rock Garden in Bellingham, and I like to draw here. So for those of you who are sketchers, which I'm assuming some of you are, I sometimes start with pencil, and usually when I'm doing a structure like this, I try to start in pencil so that I can erase. And I don't tend to do that with people or other scenes, but just buildings. And here I started with the point that I loved, which is the top of the roof. All the way up there, I am gathering some measurements with my pencil, some angles, and I'm just kind of eyeballing it. I have never been a huge fan of math and geometry, and probably due to some childhood learning experiences, but I really do rely a lot on what I see. I do not trust what I think as much as I trust what I see. So I will look many times. It's kind of like measure twice, cut once. I tend to measure and look 50 times and draw hopefully once, but again, the pencil's there in case I don't quite get it right. And in this sketch, I'm being a lot more heavy-handed with the pencil than I would normally be, and I suspect that I'm doing that because I knew that I was filming it, and pencil does not show up well in film. So anyway, I have sped this up so you don't have to watch me agonize over my building lines. One thing I tend to notice at the verticals, unless the building is on an angle, is built on an angle, is falling down, or is unstable, there's usually verticals. And here I'm just judging the proportions. How thick is the roof? How thick is the understructure? How long are the poles? And just trying to gauge how much I'm putting down on the paper. And I suspect that my proportions will be slightly off. And that's, again, because I'm not a huge measurer, but I'm a solid estimator. And I also tend to proportion things slightly in favor of what I focus on. So I suspect there's going to be a lot of roof there. Anyway, hopefully it's not terribly noticeable, but I do watch my own mind work, and in addition to the scenery. So here we go, just correcting some of my angles and seeing what that would look like if we're drawing those lines out to the edges of the paper in perspective. Again, looking a lot. One thing I love about this structure are those little round caps you're going to see on the ends. They're like roof caps or gutter caps. And I believe that those designs are Korean since it's a Korean pavilion. But when we travel in Japan, we see those too. And I used to look for certain patterns on certain houses. I don't remember if they're for different families or different areas, regions. I suspect it may be family lines, but I just would look for the different, usually some sort of natural floral design, and that may even be why I chose this structure to draw. So though I've sped this up quite a bit, the drawing itself probably took 20 minutes or so in pencil, and then I spent more time on it in pen. Don't have the patience to be precise, so I will oftentimes not draw as many beams as I see or as many windows as I see. I will generalize. So if it feels like it's getting crowded, especially on such a small scale, I might actually reduce the number of things in the picture, simplify. And it's only recently that I remembered or realized that simplification is one of the gifts and tools the artist has to work with. When I first started drawing, and I'm sure you'll hear this from many artists, I thought that reality was the gold standard. And if I could recreate reality, then I was a good artist. And indeed, there is value to seeing and sketching things as we see them in the world. The ability to see and translate that is valuable. And I think from that, we can definitely build a repertoire of tools and how we approach things and methods and styles. So I definitely deviate from reality. And perhaps the other thing that does is allow me to let go of some perfectionism. If I'm not holding myself to that perfect standard, then I will feel better. And I would say that that's definitely been a struggle in my life as a person and as an artist, is that struggling with perfection. One thing I'm doing here is I'm looking at the foliage in front of it, and speaking of reality, oh, there was a bird in the foliage. It was distracting me. Squirrel, or actually towhee. Anyway, I was looking at the foliage because that too is complicated and it's beautiful. And what do you include and what do you exclude? Well, it depends on my focus. You can see I'm going to go ahead and put some trees in, but I am going to see the forest from the trees in this sketch and simplify that as well. Why? Again, I'm not going to be able to translate it perfectly. That's not my job. But what I want to focus on is the building. And so I will give impressions and textures of trees rather than trying to translate it. I think I'm focusing here on those roof caps. Oh yeah, I'm moving that branch. I don't want it to cut across my pavilion. So when I draw it, I'm going to push it upward and keep my focus on the pavilion. It is beautiful foliage, though. We have lots of gorgeous trees here in Bellingham. So I feel like I'm ready for ink now, and what I'm using here is my Lamy Safari pen, which I adore, and my red-black Noodler's ink, which I really adore. Why do I love my Noodler's red-black ink? Well, because it is sort of water soluble. It doesn't melt away when water hits it, but it does kind of bleed beautifully into the paint I'm using, bringing this wonderful reddish hue to things. And for this scene, which sits in the forest and will be contrasted with greenish watercolors and a verdure, it seems appropriate to have that contrast of the red-black. And hopefully this is sped up, not too much, but just enough for you to see how I go over my lines and how I don't go over those perfectly either, but sometimes recreate them so that, I rewrite the lines according to how I see things now. So, okay, there is my red-black ink sketch. And here I thought I'd try something that I don't normally do. After looking at this for a few minutes, I decided that I was going to go over a few places with my other pen, and I don't even remember what kind of fountain pen it is, but it's one that I also adore, and it is just black ink. So I will use that in some places too. And the black that I'm using is also a Noodler's ink, and it is quite black and permanent. See my rainbow pen? I adore this pen, and oddly, I keep losing it in my bag or my purse, and I'll go out to sketch and I'll be like, I lost it again, and think I need to try to find another one, but it always returns to me. Must be some karmic thing, or I don't know. Anyway, I think I'm about done with my sketch here. I may go back into it later. You get to the advantage of seeing my big head shadow on this because the sun has moved. And if you've gone outside to sketch or paint, you'll notice the sun and the weather always changes. I have now opened up my watercolors. They are in an Altoids tin. I got on Etsy and ordered an insert for an Altoids tin that includes some pans and palette. This keeps things small. I have filled them with mostly Winsor & Newton and Schminky watercolor colors that I like and tend to go for often. So I made this palette out of colors that disappear really quickly in my larger palette. And then I added a few bonus colors so that I would be tempted to expand my palette when I could find an opportunity. As I paint, I do take breaks to let things dry a little bit because you could still create mud. And then you'll notice once things are dry, you have to wait for them to dry as well. I do go over things with some white gel pen. And here I think I'm using a Jelly Roll pen, probably an 8 or a 5. I tend not to work with really tiny pens because I love the softness and the flow of the rounder, fuller pens. Before we go, I just wanted to take you up into the pavilion to give you a look around. And I wanted to thank you for spending a little bit of time with me today. I hope that it was helpful in your art practice. Take good care and keep sketching.